The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman.
Habari Gani, and that means it's time for another edition of Black Focus Radio, the only show that unabashedly addresses Black issues, creating Black solutions, and amplifying Black voices. Be sure to support our sponsors, joinetradio.com, where we keep you inspired and informed. And don't forget, they broadcast Black Focus Radio daily from 12 to 2 p.m. Also support Reprogram.com, that's RIBBRUBB.com, where we bake it, grill it, smoke it, oh yeah. And Chan Bear Media Associates. That's right, we help you get your brand out. Hit us up. You got a book? You got a brand? You got anything? We can tell you how to get it done. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Catch Black Focus Radio on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And while you're out on YouTube, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Tell your mama, your daddy, your sister, your brother. Tell your mama, your daddy, your sister, your brother. Okay? We got to get those likes and subscriptions up. Okay? Now, here's one thing I want to tell you about that. We deal with facts. I don't give a damn about clicks. Okay? I want you to know that, hey, we're going to give you good stuff. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. All right. Join my one-man campaign to get rid of the N-word. It's the most despicable word ever created. Our rise begins with how we address ourselves, and using a derogatory slur against our own people is a negative, self-fulfilling prophecy. I'd like to tell you, just don't say it. I know it's embedded in our community. I know people use it all the time. I know y'all tried to change and take the power out of that word. No, it's still the word, okay? It's still the word. So again, just don't say it. All right? Now, coming up today, we got a dynamic Black fact. It's August, and there have been a lot of things in Black history that happened here in August, and we want to make sure that you understand that. So we're going to drop some knowledge on you about that. All right? Also, I've been avoiding this conversation, but I'm going to have it today. All right? Officer Coon Tatum. I got to address him because I heard something today that just floored me with ignorance. So we're going to address some of the things that he said. Let's see. Also, I think we're going to address maybe, let me see. By the way, remember I told you all, I teach people how to do podcasts. I got my little script here, so I always like to show y'all that. Let's see. Are Black girls only programs a detriment to the Black community? I want to talk about that. I'll tell you why here in a moment. Let's see. We're also gonna talk about Chef Creole in Florida, who's whining and crying. Yeah, we gotta talk about homeboy. Yeah, we're gonna talk about it's Coon Day here on Black Focus Radio. And if we get an opportunity, we're gonna talk a little bit about flock cameras, and of course this nursing board complaint that has been issued to Miss Christine Wansley. And you're beginning to understand, Black folks, that they ain't like us and they ain't our friends. I hate to say it. All right, so before we do anything else, let's do Black facts.
Dynamic Black facts. Our culture, our history, our people.
Okay, so as you all know, I tell you all the time that I'm a gigantic history buff, and it it was brought to my attention, and I already knew this, but sometimes things you just kind of forget about them. But when you look back over the history of black people in America, you begin to realize that there were so many things that happened in August that brought us to this point. And it's not just here in America, but it's all across the world. So I wanted to take some time out to talk a little bit about what some of those things were during that time period. Okay, so let's start, and they're not necessarily in any chronological order, but I want to talk about those under these black facts. And if you go to my wall, you'll see there are tons and tons of black facts on my wall right now that will blow you away. So let's start in late August 1619. Africans arrived at Point Comfort, Virginia. All right. Now, historians have said that Africans actually arrived in 1615, 4 years earlier. But the historical record is showing that Africans, they're saying, officially arrived, as far as slaves are concerned, in 1619 at Port Comfort, Virginia. Okay? In 1791, the Haitian Revolution begins. If you all don't know about that, what are you all paying attention to? And we're going to, later on, we're going to talk a little bit about Haiti, okay? But Haiti in 1791 was the first Western civilization to get rid of slavery. In other words, this was ran by the French. The French had commandeered Haiti, and they had decided that Toussaint L'Ouverture and Dessalines decided, no, we're not doing this slave stuff here in Haiti. No, it ain't happening. And they ran the French up out of there. And what you all don't really understand about that significant uprising, that was the reason that we ended up with the Louisiana Purchase. Now, I know all of you all studied the Louisiana Purchase in early, what do they even teach history anymore? And we hear about Lewis and Clark and all of those people. But the reason we ended up with the Louisiana Purchase was, in fact, because of what happened in 1791 in Haiti, when the French decided that they wanted nothing else to do with the Western Hemisphere. And then the Americans said, hey, we'll buy this from you. And thus we ended up with Louisiana and all of these other southern states, all the way up to Canada, as a matter of fact. So you really need to be thinking Toussaint L'Ouverture and the revolution that took place in 1791 that brought us to this point today. All right. Okay. In 1800, there was Gabriel's rebellion planned. Of course, it was put down. But they say that, hey, blacks were happy with slavery. That's what Tatum said. Okay, blacks happy with slavery. But why were all those rebellions happening or planned? Also, there was Nat Turner's rebellion in 1831. But we were happy. We were happy that y'all were raping our little girls. Black people were happy that you were buck breaking black boys. They were happy that they were being whipped and had salt and lime poured into their wounds. They were happy that their hands were being chopped off and they were being killed for just no reason whatsoever. Black folks was happy. Okay? Yeah. In 1887, August 17th, Marcus Garvey was born. Marcus Garvey was one of the early black people who wanted a Back to Africa campaign, and many black people in America scoffed at him. James Baldwin was born in 1924. That was August 2nd. In August 25th, and of course, by the way, James Baldwin I love James Baldwin, great writer, great orator. You listen to this show, I quote Baldwin all the time. And oh, by the way, James Baldwin was gay. Now, how could I love someone that was gay? For those of you who like to say, oh, he's homophobic. But I love me some James Baldwin. And many of our famous writers and artists back in the day were gay. Anyway. August 25th, 1925, Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters organized. Yeah, this is a little history. August was popping, man. I don't know, maybe it was the heat. I don't know, black people were tired of the heat. It had been long summers. I don't know, but August was popping. In 1836, Jesse Owens wins 4 gold medals in Germany. You know, the master race, Germany, where Hitler, you know, and all that stuff, they were the master race. And Jesse went over and said, hey, I'm going to show you my master race. And the irony is that even though we were fighting Hitler because of the master race mentality, that same mentality lived here and breathed right here in America, where Jesse went over there to show the Germans, the white Germans, that they weren't the master race, but he couldn't come home and get a job. I'm just saying. Let's see. August 28th, 1955, Emmett Till was murdered for quote-unquote whistling at a white woman, Officer Tatum. You all will find out why I keep dropping that here in a moment. All right. August 6th, 1965, Voting Rights Act signed. And you know why it was signed? Not because of the preaching, not because of the teaching. It was signed because of the Children's Crusade. It prompted Kennedy, who was later assassinated, to start pushing for voting rights. And if you don't know who the Children's Crusade is or what it was, then you are not paying attention to the show. You need to go back and listen to some of my old shows. Or just, don't even do that. Go look it up for yourself. Those of you who don't believe that children ought to be fighting grown folks' battles. All right, in 1965, August 6th. I said that. That was the voting rights. Let's see, August 11th, 1965, Watts uprising begins. That was the Watts riots, where black people had had enough of being pushed into the ghettos and the slums in Los Angeles. August 27th, 1963, W.E.B. Du Bois dies in Ghana. W.E.B. Du Bois, The Soul of Black Folks. All right, go get that book. Let's see, August 28th, 1963, the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. I have a dream that one day young black boys and black girls will be judged by the content of their, not by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. What we at on that right now? Yeah. August 30th, 1967, Thurgood Marshall was confirmed to the Supreme Court. The first black man confirmed to the Supreme Court. And it's an abomination that the person who took up that mantle and then buried it is Clarence Thomas. August 21st, 1971, George Jackson killed at San Quentin. August 30th, 1983, Guy Buford becomes the first African American in space. I remember when I was in the first grade with Miss McCoy at Mitchell Elementary. There were a couple of things that, the first grade, they always ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? That was Miss McCoy. Miss McCoy was an old racist white woman who was my first grade teacher. And I said 2 things that I wanted to be. I wanted to be a writer, which I am today. We'll talk about my books a little later on in the show if we have time. And I wanted to be an astronaut. And unfortunately, I'm not an astronaut. Never got close. Because in part, Miss McCoy kind of killed my dream. She said black people couldn't be astronauts. I'm just saying. I'm sorry. That triggered me. But hail to Guy and Buford. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. In fact, when he was first launched into space, I cheered. August 29th, 2005, Hurricane Katrina devastates New Orleans. Now, you might think that, well, why is that such a black issue? Well, the Ninth Ward was predominantly black, and the Ninth Ward was underwater, and many black people lost their lives. And there were stories of black people trying to get to higher ground that was controlled by white people, and some of them were shot and killed by white people. August 9th, 2014, Michael Brown was killed in Ferguson, Missouri. Now, many of y'all don't realize that that was probably one of the impetus of launching Black Lives Matter. So those were a couple of things that happened in August. All right. Let's see. We got a couple of other things, and then we'll end this black fact because there's just so much that happened going forward. Let me see if I can get that to reduce. There we go. Now, also, I want to talk a little bit because there were a couple other things I wanted to address here. Because this really boggles my mind. I don't want to forget about King Leopold. Now, this didn't happen in August, but sometimes we don't even talk about this because we believe because it happened on another continent that it wasn't a big deal. But King Leopold of the Congo, the private empire built on rubber, was probably one of the worst. See, I hate to keep saying worst because I keep thinking about what white people did to black people in America. I can't say that. But I just want to mention King Leopold, and we'll go into depth about him a little later on in one of the future shows, okay? And also, I want to remind you all that remember when Billie Holiday coined the song Strange Fruit and the FBI attacked her? You all do realize that there are lynchings now going on in Mississippi? Just letting y'all know, all right? And also I want to remind you as well that in 1781, the crew of a British slave ship threw 132 Africans overboard, alive. Not out of desperation, it was to collect insurance. The court ruled in their favor and paid them 30 pounds per body. Nobody was ever charged with murder. And I'll leave you right there. And that's our Black Facts for today.
Keep listening to Black Focus Radio for more dynamic Black facts, our culture, our history, our people on joynetradio.com.
I hope you enjoyed those Black Facts, because coming up, we're going to debunk some Black facts or alleged Black facts with an idiot. And I've been avoiding him and avoiding this conversation for a long time because sometimes, there's an old saying, it's best to keep your mouth closed and let people think you're a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. And Officer Tatum has opened his mouth again and he's removed all doubt. No ifs, ands, or buts. We're going to address that when we return. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com.
Potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanberry Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanberry Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanberry team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanberry Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanberry Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
All right, welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. There's a lot of things that we've got on the agenda today that we're going to try to get to. And when I first planned my show today, I really didn't plan to talk about what I'm going to address in this segment. But I've had enough. I really have of coonery. And I don't use that terminology a lot. I typically try not to address these fools that are running around acting like coons, but sometimes you just have to call a spade a spade. And prior to the show, I was doing a little prep, and I ran across a video of this coon, Officer Tatum. Okay? And of course, by now, he's all over the internet. He's went viral on a lot of things, especially with this Nolan Wells case, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and some issues that are going on with that a little later on in the show if we can get to it. And if you notice, I haven't talked a lot about that case either. I'm one of those people who I like to sit back and let things play out. I like to sit back and wait on the facts. I try not to jump to conclusions on a lot of things. I let the internet sleuths do their thing, and then I come out with what I like to call some measured and some factual data after everything has been compiled. So I've tried to avoid this issue with Tatum as long as I could. But me being a historian and me understanding a lot of things that are going on, the video that I saw today was just abhorrent, to the point where I began to curse loudly at him. And I rarely do that. So let me encapsulate what happened. So Officer Tatum had the unmitigated gall to try to use his interpretation of the Tulsa race riots. Okay? Now, let's be clear. There were 30 to 40 riots that went on during the Red Summer. Those of you all don't know what the Red Summer is. This was a period between about I think their first one initially started around 1915. Now, it wasn't the first one, all right? And I tend to tell people that when the black people went to Natchez Trace, the Devil's Punch Bowl was really the beginning of it. where black people were escaping from slavery, and they went down to Natchez, Mississippi, and they call it the Devil's Punch Bowl, where even the Union soldiers who were supposedly there to liberate black people and fight against the Confederacy ended up, thousands of black people were left to die. Thousands starved to death. And even now there's a peach grove that is growing in that area, and people will not even eat the peaches today in 2026. So I look at the Devil's Punch Bowl as the beginning of the Red Summer. But there were over 30 to 40 of these cases that happened. All right. Now let me try to paraphrase what Tatum said. I'm not going to even call him Officer Tatum because he's no longer a police officer. All right. And he claims that the Tulsa race riot was caused by a young black male who raped a black woman in an elevator. Okay? And he stated that he's not going to believe any of the accounts, and he's no longer going to believe any of the accounts from black people. Okay? So he's not believing anything that black people said. And so this white woman claimed that this black man raped her in an elevator. The young black boy, I believe he was 14 or 15 years old, he was arrested. Black people showed up at the county jail because white people were assembling to lynch him. What Tatum doesn't say is that black male was not even afforded due process. Hello? And by the way, this was the pattern of white people back in that day. That it was alleged that something happened, and they would show up at the county jail and they would hang people. Okay? And they would hang black folks. So when black people showed up in Tulsa to protect this young black man so that he could go to trial, a fight started. Shots were fired. People were killed. And ultimately, the black side of Tulsa was burned to the ground. What Officer Tatum didn't tell you is that for the first time in American history, other than the Civil War, the army, the military, was used in that city. Because what Officer Tatum, or what I should say, Coon Tatum, didn't tell you is that the Air Force dropped bombs on the side of Tulsa's black community. That's how the fire started. What Coon Tatum didn't tell you, that all of those people who were killed were black. And what Coon Tatum didn't tell you is that those people who were killed, many of those bodies have never been found, even today. Now let me expand that to a broader situation. You all do understand that this was the mantra of many of these white folks back in the day. I can tell you about the town that I grew up in, Little Rock, Arkansas, and John Carter. I talk about John Carter all the time. White girl found dead in a white church, by the way. In a white church. The culprits were blamed or accused to be black. There was no proof, none of that stuff. But they just assumed that the janitor in that church, who was black, and his son killed this white girl. People showed up at the jail, white folks, wanted to hang him. The sheriff had to get him out of town. But instead of white people allowing the law to take its course, they decided to destroy 9th Street. By the way, Coon, Tatum, if you listen to this, 9th Street was, again, the predominantly black business district. Okay? I know 9th Street well because guess what? My aunt at one point owned a shop, a beauty salon on 9th Street. It was called Elite Barber and Beauty. I, as a young kid, traversed 9th Street quite often. The very first movie theater that I ever attended or went to was the black movie theater called the Gym Theater. By the way, the first movie that I ever saw at the Gym Theater was Zulu Dawn. I think that's ironic. Coon, Tatum, you might want to go back and look at that movie because that was about imperialism. That was about colonialism. That was about when the Zulus decided that, hey, we had had enough of white folks in our country. But I digress. The white folks in Little Rock decided that they were going to go and they were going to get their 30 pounds of flesh. And it didn't matter if the persons, or I should say the people that they killed were black. In comes John Carter. They capture him. He had nothing to do with the rape and the murder of this young girl. And they drag him up and down 9th Street. They drag him throughout the black community on the back of a truck. They riddled his body with bullets as it hung on 9th and Broadway. Then they set him afire, Coon, Tatum. And by the time the governor finally called in the National Guard, when they showed up, these are accounts from not black folks, because I know you're not going to believe the words of black people. So these are accounts from the National Guard. Tatum's body, or one of his arms had been ripped from his body, and there was a white boy on the corner of 9th and Broadway, directing traffic with his burned arm. Coon, Tatum. Emmett Till. I had the pleasure of interviewing Emmett Till's uncle. The same young man that was in the room when white folks showed up and said, Emmett Till, he didn't rape a white woman. He whistled at a white woman, according to them, which was never proven. But see, I know you're not going to believe a black man's word. You're going to believe the white folks' word, Officer Tatum. And guess what? Emmett Till was pulled out of his house and lynched. Hello. You see, here's the thing. Here's the thing about history. Because I guess you've never been to a black museum. Part of the reason that they don't want black museums is because they want to hide their history. But if you go back and you look at just about every one of those cases, it all started with an alleged claim that a black man did something to a white woman. Did you see the Green Mile? Coon, Tatum, did you watch the Green Mile? Do you know that the Green Mile is based loosely on the story of George Tenet Jr.? By the way, he was the youngest person to be electrocuted. He was a black boy. He was so small that they literally had to put books under him so his head could reach the electrocution helmet. Did you know that he was accused of raping a white girl? Hello? Hello? But see, I know that you're not going to believe it. What about Rosewood? What about Memphis? You see, many of these things that happened in the past, those were not black accounts. They were written, they're in the newspapers. You claim that you did a little history study. You ain't studied crap, dude. I'm going to say it like this. You are a piece of blank. Now, the reason I didn't say that word is because this show is going to be broadcast on a religious station. And I try not to curse, but I feel like cussing right now. I feel like cussing right now. You claim that it was okay for them to burn down that town, the black area in Tulsa. That's what your premise is. Oh, well, I'm not going to believe what the black folks said. I'm going to believe what the white folks said. But see, when you go back and when you look at history, every time that there was a case, there were over 40 towns that had their town, 40 black communities that had their towns burned to the ground. It couldn't have been because black people were making more money. That couldn't have been the reason, right? It certainly couldn't have been the reason because white people needed the black people to come to their white communities and work for them. That couldn't have been the reason, right? It was just black people lying on white people. And isn't that what you're saying, Coon Tatum? You are amazing to me. And I've tried to avoid addressing you on this show purposely. There's enough people out there on the attack, and they rightfully so are attacking you. But see, when you start talking about history, when you don't know your ass from a hole in the ground, it's amazing to me because clearly you're not that intelligent. In fact, I would argue, and I understand that you were a police officer in Arizona. I want to say Phoenix. I don't know that for sure. But whatever town it was, I would argue that every black person, every minority that was arrested because of you, those cases need to be reopened. Because clearly you have a hatred for black people. What do you see when you look in the mirror every day? Okay? Well, if I would imagine that if people could look at your wrist, there would be slashes on your wrist because you hate yourself so much that you're self-mutilating. And if you're not doing it physically, you're certainly doing it mentally. How much is your soul to sell your own people out? Look, you have a right to have your own opinion. We all do. I do this show. It's my opinion. But when you start mixing ignorance with facts, that's where I draw the line, brother. And if I could show you my bookshelf, it's loaded with historical data. So are you saying to me that all of those scholars, many black and many white, lied about what went on in Tulsa? Is that what you're saying? Are you saying that all of this documented proof of the bigotry and the racism that has plagued this country since its inception is a lie? What the hell's wrong with you, dude? I almost said brother, but I can't call you my brother because you're not a brother. You're beyond that. You're something, I don't know. You're possessed with ignorance and stupidity. Wow. Oh my God. When I saw that video, I was floored. You don't know anything about history. You are tap dancing so hard to try to keep your Turning Point's money. That's what you're doing. That's why I asked earlier, how much would you sell your soul for? Because clearly Coon Tatum has sold his. Coon Tatum has sold his so deep that if it walked up and slapped him on the ass and kissed him on the mouth, he still wouldn't realize that that's his soul. And that's the sad part about this. I try not to address you, brother. Oops, see, I just called you a brother. Because see, deep down in my heart, I feel sorry for you. Because when it comes down to it, that if you cross the white folks line, and what you don't realize, you've already done that. They've just not said anything. They're tolerating you. But you've already crossed their line because you're sleeping with a white woman. You're married to a white woman. And at the end of the day, if you understood history like you claim, you would know that that's the cardinal sin when it comes to white men, white racist, and white supremacist. But you are a useful idiot. But soon as they get the opportunity, they'll drop the proverbial noose around your neck. And then what are you going to do, Coon Tatum? What are you going to do? It just boggles my mind that you can continue. Look, we've seen evidence of this already. Think about those black mega people that were supporting Donald Trump. The one that really pops to my mind is what was those two women's name? I called them Spider Spit. I forgot that name. Where are they now? Where are they now? I know one of them died. All right. What about Candace Owens? Where is she now? Soon as she stopped spouting the party line, where is she now? Look at all those others. Where are those black politicians that love Donald Trump so much and he refused to endorse them? Hello, Coon Tatum. I'm asking you a question. We're talking a little history here, brother. Oops, I just said it again. See, that's my brotherly love that's inside of me that I want to extend to everybody. But dude, see, I almost called you brother again. I just can't with you. I don't wish ill on anyone, but I guarantee you, I'd love it if someone took you out and let you know that you ain't one of us. And I'm not saying black folks. I want it to be a white person to let you know that you're not one of us. Now, I know what you're going to think. Oh, you see, you threatening me. No, I'm not threatening you. But see, here's the one thing that I will tell people. See, I don't have the love in my heart of some Christians. People that are detrimental to me and my community and my family. I wish the same things on you. And clearly you want black people to fail. Clearly, if you had it your way, you would rather black people wouldn't be here. You'd rather black people go back to Africa. Not understanding that your ass would be on that same boat. Do you really think white supremacists want you sleeping with a white woman? Do you say you're a history buff? Go ahead. Okay? Do you remember what Woodrow Wilson did? Do you remember the film Birth of a Nation? See, this is why you say you know history. The film Birth of a Nation that was played in the White House. What was the underlying theme of that? Misogyny. And what was going on? White men were chasing a black brute because they were trying to save the pretty lily white woman. So you tell me, Coon Tatum, what does that mean to you? Have you seen that film? Man, I've seen a lot of fools in my lifetime. But bro, you take the cake, man. You take the cake. That now you, by the way, who clearly isn't that smart, You know how I know? I don't even need to know your education. Here's when I go out and talk to young people, I tell them that people judge you by two things. They judge you by how you look, and they judge you by how you speak. And I can tell you from personal experiences that I have been able to walk through doors and get jobs that many black people could not get. And the reason I was able to get those jobs is because I speak well. Notice I didn't say talk well, because that's really grammatically incorrect. I speak well. And I speak well because I read. And I read from first grade forward. So the fact that I listen to you speak, I can tell that you are dumb as a box of rocks. And when I tell people who study history, here's what I tell them. I said, just don't depend on one source. Go and look for other sources. Okay? So I talked last week on my show about the Asian man, the Asian anthropologist who wanted to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that civilization began in Asia. And even though there had been proof, there had been studies, there have been all kinds of anthropologists who have said that, by the way, do you believe that civilization began in Africa? Coon, Tatum, do you believe that? But anyway, I digress. He wanted to prove that it came from Asia. Then he did his research. Then he tested the DNA. And guess what? He was proven wrong. And you know what made me respect this Asian anthropologist? Is that he said he was wrong. But see, Coon, Tatum, you'll never say you're wrong. See, that tells you your ignorance. I've had enough of you. I've spent too much time today on my show, but I had to point that out. And any black person, he's getting too much air. It's time to let his ass go. Period. We know you're being paid by white folks, and we know that you're tap dancing for white folks. It wasn't obvious at first, but now when we go back and do the research on you, Coon Tatum, we know that you worked for the Koch brothers. We know that you worked for TPS. We know all of that. I'll take a break. We've got more coonery coming up here in just a moment. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com. Customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanberry Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out
and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanberry Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanberry team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanberry Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanberry Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. Email blackfocusradio@gmail.com as well. As I told you last segment, I typically don't deal with the coons that are going on out there, but man, the coonery has been on fleek this week. Let's travel down to Miami and talk about the coon down there. His name is Wilkinson Sajore. Chef Creole is his nickname. Well, Chef Creole, he's mad. And here's why I got turned on to this. I saw a clip of this interview, and CBS was interviewing Chef Coon Creole, and he was complaining that Americans don't want to work. Hello? Oh, I'm sorry. Black Americans don't want to work. Because he said Americans, but he was specifically talking about black Americans. Because number one, he's running a restaurant. And he's upset that ICE showed up in Miami and basically cleaned out one of his restaurants. He has, I think he said 7 in various places. His front people have been removed, arrested by ICE. He's mad. He says he's going to lose his business. So at first, I didn't really take the American thing to heart. Now, here's a person, by the way, who put kids through school in the restaurant business. I know for a fact that you don't get paid a lot in that business. I know for a fact that, I waited tables for a long time in that business. I made good money waiting tables. But the average person that is a line cook, the average person that is a dishwasher, and by the way, when you wait tables, you are not only making money, but you are paying the bussers. You are paying some of the other employees. You have to tip into a pool. Okay? Although you done kicked your butt, taking names, hustling tables, but you got to pay other employees. From what I understand now, that business has gotten even worse. So I imagine that the people that you had employed were not Americans anyway. I imagine, Chef Coon Creole, that the people that you were employing were Haitian or immigrants. And what we know occurs in those situations is that businesses take advantage of immigrants because they don't have paper. So you pay them less than what you normally would pay Chef Coon Creole, or should I call you Creole Coon? So now you're complaining that ICE shows up at your restaurant and you were taking advantage of immigrants. By the way, Chef Coon Creole is from Haiti. Those are the same people who are mad at black Americans because black Americans are not supporting the abolition of TPS. Well, now you know why black Americans aren't supporting you. Because you don't respect black Americans. But you come to America thinking that Haiti was all that in a bag of chips to make money. Why don't you take your ass back to Haiti and open your restaurant? Oh, you're not going to do that, are you, Chef Coon Creole? You're a damn hypocrite. But it gets even better for my good old boy, Chef Creole, Coon Creole. He voted for Donald Trump. What? Wait a minute. So, Donald Trump lied and said the Haitians were eating the neighborhood dogs and cats. Now, let me tell you a quick story. When I was in Memphis doing radio early on, remember the Mariel boat lift that happened in the mid 80s? I was at WHBQ. This is a true story. And many of those people that they brought over from, I want to say Thailand and Myanmar and things of that nature, they brought them to Fort Chaffee in Arkansas, but in various places around the country. They also took them to Memphis. I was a producer at WHBQ. We had callers that stated that their dogs were coming up missing. I'm not kidding. I'm not trying to cast aspersions on any race or anything like that. What you all don't realize that many in other countries, people eat things that we don't eat. Okay? In that particular country, apparently, canines was part of the menu. And then that happens in a lot of Asian countries, from what I understand. So we had a lot of people calling and saying that their animals were coming up missing. There was one of the intake people, and I don't forget what they called them, literally went to the homes of some of these people, and sure enough, they looked in the freezers and some of those people's dogs were in their freezers. Okay? So that's a really credible story. But see, here's why I'm bringing this up. The accusations about the Haitian people eating dogs and cats in the neighborhood during this last election cycle was never corroborated. It was a political talking point to try and scare white people to vote for Donald Trump. And it worked. Not only did Donald Trump say it, but his vice president said it. Vance said it. So here is a political organization that cast aspersions on your people, the Haitian people, and you voted for them? Not only did they cast those aspersions on your people, they said that your country, Haiti, was a whole country. Remember that? What they didn't tell you, you heard me talk about this earlier in the show, about Toussaint L'Ouverture, that part of the reason that Haiti is in the dire straits that it's in today is that when the French left Haiti, they imparted an excise tax on the country of Haiti that they have been paying for centuries. Not only did the French get money from the United States when we purchased the Louisiana Purchase, but the French also was blackmailing the country of Haiti to pay this fee. In other words, the French got reparations for the dastardly things that were going on in Haiti. Okay? So, Chef Coon Creole, I mean, did you know this? Did you know this? Did you know that you voted for a person who told you that they were going to get rid of immigrants, regardless? Did you know that you voted for a person who called your country an S-hole country? Hello? And you still voted for him, and now you're on national news and your story has went viral. And you think people are feeling sorry for you? It's just like some of these Hispanics out there who voted for Donald Trump. You think people are feeling sorry for you? Why would I do that? Why would I care? And I'm going to be totally honest with you, Chef Coon Creole, that I hope you lose every one of your damn businesses. Because here's the thing that I have to say about black people around the world, is that at some point, we're going to have to understand that we're in the same boat together. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care what mentality you may have, but the first mentality that we as black people around the world have got to get is a black mentality. I don't care if you're from Myanmar. I don't care if you're from Burkina Faso. I don't care if you're from Haiti. I don't care what black country that you come from. At the end of the day, if you have melanin, you are black. And I am sick and tired of black people from Jamaica to wherever claiming that they're not black. I'm Jamaican. Well, let me ask you something. If you don't open your mouth and I never hear you speak, or I should say if a white man never hears you speak, the first thing that he sees is the color of your skin. And what do you think he's going to call you? He's going to call you a nigger. And then you're going to speak. Well, I'm not from there. Well, I'm a British. I'm British. You're what? You see, that's what brainwashing has done to our people around the world. It has brainwashed us to take our ethnicity out and believe in their ethnicity. It not only did it with the ethnicity, it did it with their religions. And there are over 4,500 religions around the world. I'm simply saying to you, Chef Coon Creole, is that you're a damn idiot. And anyone else who voted for Donald Trump is an idiot. Especially if you're a person of color. Especially if you migrated here from another country. And we are all ultimately, when we go back down the list, are migrants. I know my ancestors were migrants because I've done the research. I've traced back the DNA. Yeah, we were migrants that emanated from Ghana and Nigeria. So, Chef Coon Creole, here's what I have for you. Did you know what this is? Those of you not on radio, I'm rubbing my thumb and forefinger together, and it represents the smallest violin in the world. Or, as I like to say, 2 tears in a bucket. If it don't fill it, you fill in the blank, Chef Coon Creole. I hope you catch more hell. Look, by the way, don't be surprised if you done been all over the media now. Don't be surprised if they're checking your immigration status. I hope it's okay. Because you're going to be on that slow boat back to Haiti as well. And by the way, you don't want to go back to Haiti, do you? It's ran by gangs and violence. You wouldn't have a restaurant there, would you? Ain't that something? We'll take the top of the hour break. When we come back, we got more stuff, man. I'm going to ask the question when I come back. Let me see what's on my agenda. I want to make sure I cover. We may not get to flock cameras because there's something else that I want to talk about that's related to this. Black girls' programs are damaging the black community. I'm going to give you a world perspective of why that's important. Y'all gonna be mad at me today, but you know what? I don't care. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joynetradio.com. unabashedly.com.
What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
The views and opinions expressed today on Black Focus Radio are not the views and opinions of the station, its management, or its advertisers. Now, let's get ready to focus on our issues, our solutions, using our voices on Black Focus Radio.
Welcome to Black Focus, the show designed with our community in mind, where we focus on our issues, developing our solutions, using our voices. Central Arkansas, surrounding areas, and the nation. Get ready. Black Focus starts right now. Phone lines open at 855-525-5683. So here's your host, David W. Coleman.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. You're in the second hour of the show. Just quickly, let me do a shameless promotional plug. In about 2 weeks, my new book, Blue Chip Down, will be out. And I am just totally excited about this. And it is about a young black male who is the #1 quarterback and #1 athlete in the country, who decides that he's going to not take his scholarship and he's going to launch all kinds of things related to this. Now, part of the reason that I wrote this book is because I had been planning it for years. I think I started planning it back around 2014, but it for whatever reasons, I never got to it, but now things are happening that I think it's certainly apropos for what's going on today. And it's surrounded around my high school, Little Rock Central, as well. We know the history of Little Rock Central, Little Rock 9. If you don't know it, we know Coon Tatum doesn't, but go out and look at that, all right, and find out what the Little Rock 9 was all about. But that's what the book is about. And I will tell you that it's also going to come out in audiobook. And when I wrote the book, there were a couple of chapters in there that I cried. I'm going to be totally honest with you. This is just how powerful the book is. So I just finished up the audiobook, and it was very difficult to read those chapters. And I cried. I simply had to take a break. I couldn't go through with them. I was powering through it and trying to get it done, and I couldn't finish them. I had to take a break. That's just how emotional this book is and how emotional it is for me. So I wanted to remind you, in 2 weeks, the release date is targeting September 1st. You can pre-order the book from me. Just simply hit me up. You can send me an email at chanbearmedia@gmail.com. That's Chan, C-H-A-N, bear, the word bear, B-E-A-R, media, @gmail.com. And I'll send you some information on how you can get the book. It's going to be autographed. By the way, although I sell it on Amazon, I'm trying to autograph every book I sell. So you have to go through me to get that autographed copy. All right? So I just want to tell you about that. Now, let's get on to the subject at hand that I want to talk about this hour. I want to talk about how black girls only programs are destroying the black community. Now, I know black women going to get mad at me, but before you get mad, just listen, just hear me out. Years ago, I did a program, and if you've been paying attention, I've just re-released my teen survival kit. When I first put together this kit, it was called the Black Male Teen Survival Kit. Okay? That's significant for what I'm about to talk about today. I also put together rites of passage camps. I was living in Memphis and attending a church called Greater Imani. And we decided that we wanted to do some things that would help black boys. Okay? And we decided that we would start putting together rites of passage camps. This was in part due to my late friend, Dr. Jawanza Kunjufu, who wrote Countering the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys. If you have not read that book, you need to go out and check it out. So I did 2 camps. We did a camp in the summer, and then we did a camp during Christmas break. And one of the mothers from the church whose son went to the camp, and by the way, when I would do the camps, they wouldn't just do a camp and be done. I had multiple young brothers coming back wanting to go to the next camp, even though they were going to get basically the same information. Okay? I had mothers coming up to me asking me, what did you do to my son on this camp? And at first, when I first got that first question, I'm like, what do you mean? I didn't do anything. I didn't. They said, that woman said, my son ain't the same son. It's like, he's like night and day. And what we would do with these camps is that every hour we would have a different speaker to talk to these young men about choices. Okay? So after the 3rd camp, I had a mother come up to me and said, whose son had been to the rites of passage camps, who said, hey, I need you to do this for a girl. I got a daughter. She's having some problems. And there are a lot of women in the church who would like you to do it for girls. And I told them, and part of the reason that I didn't do it for girls, I said, girls are a problem. I was being honest. I didn't want an accident to happen where maybe somebody touched one of those little girls and then you got a mess on our hands. I didn't want it for me, and I certainly didn't want it for my church at the time, and I didn't want it for the pastor. By the way, the pastor was Bill Atkins. Okay? I didn't want that. But I kept getting requests. So I went to the pastor and I asked him, I said, what do you think about us doing a rites of passage for girls? And we would call it queenship. The name of it ultimately ended up being rites of passage and queenship. The rites of passage for boys and the queenship portion was for the girls. And we got women in the church who volunteered because this was an overnight camp. We would go out on a Friday, stay overnight, Saturday, and come back Sunday morning. And the whole point was to get volunteers who would come out and stay those 2 nights. But I wasn't going to do that with girls. I just wasn't. I just didn't want that potential liability. I'm being honest with you. We ultimately ended up getting women who would do that, who did that. and we put together rites of passage and queenship. Our last camp before I moved away from Memphis to Nashville, we had 128 girls and boys. They went through the same camp. They were just in separate locations in the camp. Throughout the only time they met each other or saw one another was when they had dinner, when they had lunch. They came into the same cafeteria. But throughout the entire camp, the girls was in part of the camp and the boys were in the other part of the camp. All right? I ultimately started going around speaking and doing my teen survival kit in a condensed version, my black male and female teenage survival kit in a condensed version in churches. Okay? And when they would come in, I would have the girls to sit on one side and the boys to sit on the other side. Because there were things that I would address with the boys and I would literally turn my back to the girls. And then there were things that I would address to the girls that I would literally turn my back to the boys. Okay? Because I thought, although some of the information was basically the same, both groups absorb and understand the information separately. Now, I ultimately ended up doing it in Nashville for 2 years as well. Now, I say all that to say that if you've been following me on Facebook, you've noticed that I've released the Teen Survival Kit. I'm bringing it back. So if you would like to book that kit, and look, yeah, I'm promoting it, but if you would like to book me to come and talk to your young people, let me know. You can hit me up at chanbearmedia@gmail.com. And I'll send you a formulary of how much it would cost you. Now, the reason I'm bringing all of this up is because I've noticed, and I've even went toe to toe with a couple of black women about this issue. A few years ago, before I moved away, I was in Little Rock, okay? And they were having a Juneteenth celebration. And there was a black organization that was funding female businesses to get a booth. I wrote them a nice letter, and it was nice. And I asked the question, what about black male businesses? I said, how can you be celebrating Juneteenth when you're segregating black males and black females? How could that be possible? Ultimately, they capitulated and they started offering the same for black male businesses as black female businesses, which they should have. Okay? We're seeing all across this country, we're seeing programs specifically designed to support black females, and black males are being left out in the cold. Now, before I go on, let me just remind you, we all just went through the World Cup, right? Y'all remember that country that literally got rid of black people? Do you know who they were? You remember? It was Argentina, right? And you know how they got rid of black people? Is that they sent all of the black men to the front lines to fight their wars. And black men were ultimately killed off. And they told the black women that if you want to live in this country, you need to start sleeping and having babies by white men. I think Argentina today is like 2% black. You see, you got to understand something here. And I mentioned misogyny earlier in the show. Is that if you want to control a race, you attack the male. Hello? Why do you think they did all those things to black males back in the day? I know mothers, and even Dr. Kunjufu talked about this, is that black women will push the strong black male back so that he will not offend the white power structure. That's what the whole Willie Lynch situation was all about, is that they would take the biggest and the strongest black male, and before you all out there say, well, you know, Willie Lynch really didn't exist. But the concept we see every day. There's a reason why the prison population went from 700,000 to over 1.4 million in less than 30 years. And the majority of those people are black males. You see, if I control the black male, I can control the female because psychologically and physically I'm stronger as a male. I'm sitting here right now looking at a piece that I was going to cover, but I got all off into that other stuff. Let me say, the economic state of black men and boys in 8 numbers. Black men and boys in the United States is 22.7 million. 6.6% black unemployment rate, June of 2026. And that's what I love about this piece, is that because it is up to date. All genders highest among the 4 racial and ethnic groups presented in the BLS monthly summary table. By the way, this was compiled by Virginia State. If you haven't seen this, go out and look at it. Medium weekly earnings, black men full-time, 77 cents per white male dollar. So you got black women running around, well, I ain't gonna date no black male that ain't making this, that, and the other. You're saying that because you're ignorant. Because if you understood that statistic, a black man makes 77% of the dollar versus the white male. 26% black men's share of HBC enrollments, down 38% from 1976. Medium transaction account balance, households with black householders, $2,200. You do realize that black people, their median income, household income, is 38% less than the same average white household. 43% home ownership rate among households with a black householder versus 73% among households with a white householder. 1.7 points decline in black men's employment to population ratio. 30% share of unemployed black men out of work, 27 weeks as of May of 2026. And so you all have bought into that brainwashing too, black women, that, oh, it's the black man's fault. Did you hear what I just said about Argentina? Did you hear what I just said about Willie Lynch? You understand that if I want to control you, black woman, I, white man, I control your black man. I lock him up. I unemploy him. I make sure, I use the media to bastardize him, to cast aspersions on him. So why are you black women putting together programs? I mean, do you want your black daughter to grow up and marry a black male? Now, I know there are parts of Africa who believe that the white man's ice is colder and his sugar is sweeter. So a lot of those black women who come to America, the first thing they want to do is marry a white man. So is that mentality subconsciously playing in you putting together programs that only support black women? Because see, I would make the argument that you heard that black fact that I read earlier in the show about the 137 black people, Africans, who were thrown overboard from the British ship. You see, they weren't just black men. They were black women too. Hello? Y'all understand that, right? You do realize that when slave ships arrived on this continent, you do understand that black men and black women, have you ever seen the holes of a slave ship? I went to the exhibit, A Slave Ship Speaks. I've told you all this before. That exhibit was so profound to the people that we took. This was part of one of my Rites of Passage groups. We took them from Nashville to Memphis to the Pink Palace Museum, where A Slave Ship Speaks was there. And they had recreated the hold of a slave ship. And they had put in the hold bodies, not real bodies, but mannequins of black people and how they were put in this ship. We went down in this hold, and then they had the shackles. They even had some real shackles that they had discovered in this grounding of this ship because it was sunken. And they were piping in some of the pain and suffering over the audio system. We went down in this hold, and it was about 30 of us, men, women, and kids from ages 12 to 18. And for a good 15 minutes, we huddled together and we cried like babies. By the way, those kids that were with us, those were young teens, boys and girls as well. Here's my point, is that we all came over here, most of us. There were some who were already here. But those, because I know my ancestors came on one of those slave ships because I've done the DNA. But I know people beside my ancestors were not just men, were not just women. They were men and women. You all understand this, right? So I'm going to ask you again, black women of higher learning, why are you putting together programs that only support young black women? Why aren't your programs supporting black men as well, young black men as well? Because we're all in this boat together, whether you like it or not. See, feminism has destroyed your mental capacity to understand that before you were feminine, you were black. Hello? Before you got your genitalia, you were black. See, when that egg and that sperm became a zygote, it was black even before you realized it. So you're doing what Argentina is doing, but you're doing it on an educational level. You're empowering black women, but you're saying to hell with black men. So who do you expect for your young black women to marry? And then you have the unmitigated gall to be walking around here on social media talking about, well, ain't no black men of my caliber. Ain't no black men that can support me. This is what you're teaching your daughters? You're part of the damn problem. And I don't care if you're mad at me. If we're going to solve the problem of the black experience, then we got to work together. And any program that we do should be open to every black person, regardless of their skin color. Hello? Y'all get this, right? Y'all understand this, right? See, it doesn't matter to me. I'm going to help black women, and I'm going to help black men. And that's what we all should be doing. Y'all get this? You follow? We okay with that? So I'm not making this piece to chastise you. I'm making this piece to wake you up, to give you an understanding that your logic of only helping one side of our race is flawed. That's no different than white people saying we're only going to help white folks. You get that, right? Does that make it clear? So the next time white people say that this program is whites only, and you're a black person and you want to be part of that program, don't get mad if you're participating in those black girl only programs. Let's put them together. And the reason I know it can be done, because I ran programs that did it. Hello? We'll take a break. Back in a moment. Go Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. On joinetradio.com.
Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanberry Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanberry Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanberry team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanberry Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanberry Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
Welcome back to Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices. 855-525-5683 is the number. That's how you get in touch with me if you'd like to join the show. Don't forget, Blue Chip Down is coming out September 1st. Also, don't forget about The Pain of Vengeance. That is already out. You can order it from me as well. You'll get an autographed copy, or it's on Amazon. And there is an audiobook available out there on audiobooks as well. So check that out. All right. So this segment, I want to talk a little bit about the thing at Tuskegee and some of these dress codes and how uninformed and ignorant some of our children are. Now, you're going to get mad at me again, but you know, I talk about facts. I don't deal with how you feel. I try to make this show that it makes you think. And sometimes your cognitive dissonance will kick in and you'll get mad. But if you simply go back and try and understand what I'm saying, then I think you'll be okay. All right? Don't sit there and say, I hate black folks. If you know me, I love me some black folks. Okay? So let me start off by talking about this, and I'm gonna prove a few points here by some examples. Let's start off talking about, I saw a piece last week, I should say, of a young man who has a show and he talks about things that happened in history. Okay? And one of the things, this particular piece that he was doing was about the Chambers brothers that were from Marianna, Arkansas. If you don't know the story, and I'll be brief, the Chambers brothers grew up in Marianna, Arkansas. Marianna is not the greatest place to live at that time. It was poor, and particularly for black people. They grew up during the height of the crack epidemic. They moved to Detroit and took over a housing development and was dropping down millions of dollars of crack, making money. Many people say that many people say that New Jack City was based on the Chambers brothers. Okay? So this guy who was making this point, I told him this is nothing to brag about. I said that if these, and it was 4 of them, by the way, if these young men had the capacity to turn a crack corporation into a multi-billion-dollar operation, they had the capacity to go to school, get a law degree, and do the same thing as a lawyer or start a corporation, whatever the case may be. And he agreed with me. There was another young brother who came in and decided that he wanted to try and chastise me and say, oh, well, this was part of the CIA and yada, 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 and people have to do what they got to do. Well, wait a minute. Are you saying doing what you got to do is selling your people down the river? They have this thing called no snitching. Okay. So you won't snitch on black people, but you will sell them poison to kill them and their children and their children's children. What kind of logic is that? You see how confused that we are? That if we would simply pool our money, we could change this whole dynamic. I saw the other day that LeBron James is trying to put together money, at least allegedly, where he can start his own basketball league. That's wonderful, LeBron. And you've done a lot of great things, and I'm a big fan of yours, and I've told you that over and over again. But the problem I have with this, just like Jaylen Brown said, hey, we need to come together and put our money together. Why are all these black people making money for ESPN and Disney when they need you for credibility? Why don't you start your own sports network? Why don't you all come together and start your own news network? Why don't you all come together and start your own movie channels? And stop pushing drugs, gangs, and violence as Hollywood does on a regular basis. Because again, it goes back to what we were talking about, is that they want to put negative statistics or negative images in your head so that you will be nothing but what those negative images are. This is why I'm so against gangster rap and always have been. 90% of the people who own radio stations and record producers are white. These are the same people who will not allow their children to listen to this garbage, but you do. So my question is, it comes down to what we are teaching our kids. The other part of this segment is, as you all know, Tuskegee and some of the other HBCUs have instituted a dress code. I talked about this a little bit on the show last week as well. This dress code, by the way, has been in effect. It's in their student handbook. But black women and black men are upset. They're upset because, and then the first thing they say is, well, white universities don't make us do this. Well, here's the thing. I'm not trying to be white. And if you understand about the black experience in America, is that you have to stay 3 steps ahead of white people because they're going to push you back too. Okay? There were jobs that I probably should have gotten that I didn't because I was black. There were jobs that I got because guess what? I arrived at the interview on time, before time. I also arrived at the interview. I spoke well. All of those came into play. So there are certain standards that we as black people have got to meet that other communities don't have to. If you go back and look at some of the old pictures and the old movies, look how those people were dressed. Look how your ancestors were dressed. They weren't walking around with their butts out. The ones that were in a different segment. Look, I know a lot of friends that grew up in the housing developments. I know a lot of friends who didn't have a lot of clothes. But I guarantee you that when they showed up at school or when they showed up at church, their clothes were pressed. They were nicely dressed. And if there were multiple children in the family, that minister or that organization in the community made sure that every child had a good pair of shoes, that every child had a suit and tie where they could come to church and look good. Some of them would come to church and wouldn't even have on ties. They would just have on a pair of pants and a shirt. But they looked nice. So these kids who seem to believe that there's some underlying conspiracy that black colleges are being racist and it's identity politics, when you say that, that proves to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that you know nothing about your history. Nothing. You know nothing about it. Because if it was identity politics, If it was about your identity, then the identity of black people have always been straightforward. What you are propagating, young people today, is a gangster thug ghetto mentality. You don't have time. I told y'all last week, my mother would never leave the house with rollers in her head, with a rag on her head. I knew other black women who were like that. No, you're not, before, when you were dating back then, and that young woman had hair, I know y'all do, weave today and wigs, that's fine. But if that young woman had hair, because the beauty salon was every week or every 2 weeks. So you had to get a press and a comb and a hot comb. Well, press and a curl, because a press is the hot comb, by the way, created by a black woman, Madam C.J. Walker. You had to put rollers in your head at night so that those curls would be nice the next morning. So if you were going out on a date with one of these young women, you would call and say, well, I'm going to be there at so-and-so time. They didn't say, hey, well, you need to give me $150 to get my hair done and my nails done. They didn't say that. You know what they would say, though? Well, okay, can you come about 7:15 or 7:30? Because I need to make sure I got to get my hair and get my rollers out of my hair. I'm not going anywhere with you with rollers in my hair. When we would go on road trips that included women, because back then we would go to church conferences, the young women they had a separate bag of rollers, or they had this little portable dryer kit. And when we would always tell them that, okay, the first session starts at 8 o'clock, make sure you're on time. That's what the counselors would tell us. Those young women were getting up at 5, 6 in the morning to make sure that their hair was on point. And if you went and knocked on the door and they were running late, and one of them still had rollers in her hair, she would run in the bathroom because she didn't want you to see her with rollers in her head. It was about pride. So where are y'all coming from talking about this is racial identity politics because black people want their black children to look decent? What you're trying to support is laziness. What you're trying to support is whorish mentality. What you're trying to support is gangster mentality. That is not part of the black culture. I'm sorry, today's young black people. It's just not. And I am so glad that these schools are calling this out for what it needs to be. Because at some point there are standards. What are your standards? Look, my wife, if we're just going to the store, my wife got to look, it's not me telling her. It's what she decides. It's that, hey, I'm not going over there with rollers in my hair. I'm going to clean up. I'm going to dress nice. If it's just going to the damn grocery store. And she will check me and say, hey, do you think you really need to wear that? I'll look at her. Well, what's wrong with it? It's this, and this. Oh, okay. I get you. So whether you got a do-rag, whether you got a rag on your head, whether you got a mop on your head, it don't matter. What are your standards? Because if you've got kids, they are following your lead. What are you raising your children? There's an old Bible verse, raise up a child in which he should go, and thus he will never depart. I may have butchered that, but y'all get the point. In other words, children live what they learn. If your child see you reading at home, guess what? They're going to read. If your child see you cussing and smoking dope at home, they're going to do the same as they grow up. And then they're going to throw it back in your face when you try to correct them. Well, you did it. I tell people all the time that my kids never saw me date when I was single. They never saw me date. They never saw women in my house. In fact, I would not even introduce women to my children unless it was a serious relationship. And for 7 years, there were no serious relationships with me. So my kids couldn't grow up and say, well, Dad, you ran. My son couldn't grow up and say, Dad, you were running hoes up in and out the house every night. Or my daughter couldn't grow up and say, well, Dad, I saw women come out of it. I'm just doing what I saw those women do. No. Children live what they learn. And the question is, what did you learn? But it's never too late to break that cycle. I'm just saying. I had to say that again. Because this is a debate that shouldn't be raging, but it is raging again in the black community because it is an incompetent debate. Yeah, we want you to put your best foot forward. We want you to be the best that you can be. We want you to look the best that you can look. And you can't do that with rollers in your head and sacks on your head and do-rags on your head and your pants hanging down. Remember I talked about the rites of passage camp earlier in the show? Guys couldn't show up with no belts. If you showed up without a belt and your pants was hanging down, I gave you a rope to tie it up. You couldn't show up with belts. There was a standard that you had to meet. And I would send it out in the information sheet to the parents. This is the expectations. This is what they're going to learn. They make sure that they have belts. Make sure that they're respectful. And as I think about it, all those years that I did those camps, I never had one young black male or female to be disrespectful. If they did, I'd send them home, but I never had to. I'm cramming a few things into this segment before we go to the next segment, which is what we must do. So I got a few more minutes. Let me talk a little bit about the Nolan Wells case. There's a problem going on in Mississippi. And everybody that dies that is hanging from a tree is not suicide. And I'm hard pressed to believe that any of them are suicide, but the medical examiners are deeming them suicide. That's a problem. I ask the question right now. At this point, why are you sending your children to any school in Mississippi that's a college? That speaks to my book, Blue Chip Down. At this point, until black people start understanding that their power is in their children, white people are going to continue to abuse them. Here's the other thing. Why are you sending your children to camps and schools where you're the only black? My mom did that to me at Camp Grundy when I was, 8, 9, 10 years old. She did that to me. I'm sending you to Camp Grundy because you need to know how to grow up and be around white people. Okay. To some extent it helped. But what she didn't realize, I fought every day. And when she picked me up, because it was a day camp, when she picked me up, she said, how was your day? It was terrible. I had a fight. Why are you fighting? Because this white boy said this to me. Or this white boy did this to me. Or this white boy called me a nigger. One of them stopped calling me that after he ended up with a broken nose and and black eyes. And I think after I did that, they all stopped calling me that. But my point is that we're sending our kids. Nolan Wells was killed, and all of these white people have lawyered up and won't give the truth about what happened. Now I say allegedly killed. Let me clear that up. But there are certainly peculiar circumstances that are surrounding this case. And look, we talked about it. They took his phone. And I found out just recently that one of his so-called best friends called the mother at 11 o'clock the next morning and asked her, had she heard from Nolan? Well, how could she have heard from Nolan when he had the boy's phone? You get this, right? And not only did Nolan's phone leave, all of his data was deleted. All of their data surrounding that day was deleted. We know for a fact, look, we don't even have to say young people. Grown people can't go without their phone, let alone young people, because your phone is so important these days. It has your credit card information, your banking information. It's how you communicate to the world. Nobody has wall phones anymore. You can't go to someone's house and knock on the door and say, hey, can I use your phone? You can, but it would be their cell phone. So here's what has happened now to Christine Wansley. Nolan's mom. See, the people in Mississippi don't want this case to be pursued. At least some people don't. Some of the parents of these kids who have been implicated are trying to sue people who are social media sleuths, who are looking at data and finding inconsistencies. Y'all get this, right? So they don't want this, so they're trying to sue them. They're trying to shut you up. They don't want you talking about it. What's going on here? Okay? So now they've also called, because Miss Wansley is a nurse, they called the Mississippi Nursing Board and filed a fake or false complaint against her. They're now trying to make her lose her job. At what point? And by the way, Coon Tatum, where you at on this? Is that wrong? At what point are we going to say enough is enough? And you start by disenrolling your kids in those white universities where they're making money. They're saying the number one athlete or draft pick is probably playing for the University of Mississippi right now. Why? He's black. He's a quarterback. Why? For money? So again, just like Coon Tatum, you sell out your people for 30 pieces of silver. We'll take our last break. It's called Black Focus Radio. Our issues, our solutions, our voices on joinnetradio.com.
Every day, potential customers are deciding who to trust. The question is, will they choose you? At Chanbear Media Consultants, we help businesses, nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and authors build brands that stand out and get results. Need a new logo, podcast or website development and evaluation, grant research and writing, book editing with formatting and cover design? Chanbear Media Consultants has got you covered. With over 40 years of media experience, David W. Coleman and the Chanbear team combine creativity with strategy to help your organization communicate with confidence and grow with purpose. Don't settle for ordinary when your brand can be extraordinary. Call Chanbear Media Consultants today at 615-554-0568. That's 615-554-0568. Chanbear Media Consultants, building brands, creating influence, and most importantly, delivering results. What's old is new again. The release of the Pain of Vengeance audiobook is finally here. A new generation, but the old story remains the same. What happens to an officer of the court when the tables of justice are turned against him? Will he abide or take the law into his own hands? Follow the saga of Malik Coleman as he makes decisions that will change lives forever. Be the first to hear it and hear it again. What would you do? Accept an unjust ruling or reject the system outright that views fathers as second-class citizens? Order The Pain of Vengeance today. Now available as an audiobook. The Pain of Vengeance will make you cheer, cry, laugh, and make you question equality and who truly benefits. Order The Pain of Vengeance audiobook by Dante Sinkay today.
Welcome back to my favorite segment of the show. It's called, well, it's not necessarily my favorite segment, but it's one of my favorite segments. Because, you know, I love black facts as well. It's called What We Must Do. And this is a segment where we talk about, we pull everything together. It's kind of like, you know, when you're making some bread. You got your eggs, you got your sugar, you got your yeast, you got your milk, you got your pans, you got your flour. You got all that stuff. Those are the ingredients. And then you got to mix all that stuff up to bake the bread, to get that loaf. So the previous parts of the show is all of the ingredients. And now we about to mix it all together and bake some bread. And today we want to talk about deprogramming and reprogramming. If you've listened to the show today, there is a lot of deprogramming that we need to do as black people. And it's got to be an ongoing situation. It's not going to happen in one day. It's not going to happen in 1 week, 1 year, 1 month. It's got to happen through generations, because our generations, over the decades, over the centuries, since we arrived on this shore, since the colonists arrived in Africa stealing people, is that we have to start deprogramming. That might include your religion as well. If you're sitting at home and you've got a picture of Caesar Borgia hanging in your house as a representation of Jesus, and you're black, you need to deprogram. Okay? Because I know growing up, a lot of black households used to have that. A lot of black churches used to have that, and still do, by the way. Okay? It's kind of like that stupid preacher in Texas who recently came out saying that if it wasn't for slavery, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. You know what? You're damn right. If it wasn't for slavery, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. But that's not what he meant. He was happy they had slavery. He was happy. Okay? He needs to what? Deprogram. And what has religion done across this world? It's just not Christianity. It's also Islam. It's also Buddhism. Whatever religion out there, it has been nothing but a programming situation to keep you docile. Think about it. How many people have been killed around the world in the name of religion? Pick one. It's just not Christianity. It's just not Islam. How many people have been killed? Look, right here in America, remember Jim Jones? The cult follower? Oh, he could talk, he could preach his ass off. But how many people did he kill? How many people did he give red Kool-Aid to? Hello? I'm just saying, folks, we've got to deprogram. We've got, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing talks about menticide. We know what genocide is. That's what Israel is doing right now in Gaza. That means that's what Hitler did. The attempt to destroy a total race of people. That's what Hitler did. That's what Israel is doing right now in Gaza. They are trying to completely wipe out the Palestinians. That they don't exist. So if they eventually wipe them out, then guess what? They can make the argument that this was really our land all along. Palestinians, who? By the way, guess what? They're doing it under the guise of religion. You do realize that the Catholic Church went after Ethiopia because Haile Selassie was saying he was a direct descendant of Jesus Christ. And the Catholic Church at one point supported the Third Reich. Hello? Do your history. I'm just saying. We have to deprogram. Let me tell you what menticide is. I just told you what genocide is. But menticide is the total destruction of the minds of a particular race of people. So I can't beat you. So I'm going to mentally destroy you. And then I can mold your mind into anything that I need it to be. That's what slavery did to us. That's what colonization did to us. I can't beat you because it's more of you than it is of me. Remember African kings, when you go back and you look at some of the documentation, it said Africa, the white man brought the Bible to Africa. And while we were on our knees praying with our eyes closed, they robbed us blind. They stole our gold, they stole our land, and they stole our people. Because if I can't beat you, see, I used to use this analogy all the time. You have an army of 1,000 men. I have an army of 10,000 men. How can I defeat those 10,000 men with just 1,000 I can't engage with you physically. So I have to try and negotiate with you. I have to try and figure out a way that I could spy and beat you one by one or in groups or whatever. So when you look around the world, when white people realized that there were more blacks, people of color, than there were white people, they had to come up with a way to beat you. They used religion. They used deception. They turned black people against black people. They tried to make the argument that black people sold people into slavery as well. Well, your Bible kinds of debunks that simply because Joseph was sold into slavery, but Joseph ended up being a very, very powerful leader in the Bible. So the point is that many of the people that were sold into slavery were not their own people. They were victims of war. And many of those people could grow to become kings and queens in the new tribes. Hello? So menticide, the total destruction of the minds of a race of people. And they were very successful in that. We talked about someone early in the show who is a victim of menticide. Who is that person? There were two. This is the class. This is the quiz for the class today. There were two that we talked about in this show today. One was Coon Tatum, and then the other was Coon Creole. Victims of menticide. But they're not the only ones. There are plenty of people of color who are victims of menticide. And to some extent, some of us who think that we are aware are still victims of menticide. It takes a long time. I began my process in my early 20s. It took me a long time to feel like that I am not subjected to the white mentality anymore. I lost a lot of friends, white ones, but you know what? They weren't friends in the first place. They just pretended to be friends because DC was cool. DC was a good football player. They weren't friends in the first place. I lost a lot of black friends who said, "Oh man, you crazy. Why you talking that crazy African shit?" Excuse my French. That's what they said to me. Many of those friends now have come around. I didn't get mad at them. I just kept doing what I thought was best for me and my children. Because see, now when I look at my children are thriving because of who they are and knowing where they came from. You see, that's part of my teen survival kit. It's one of the segments, and then I talk about the importance of knowing your history, because you got to know where you came from to know where you're going. You see, they want to tell you that you only came from slaves. You see, slavery wasn't our history. Slavery simply was an interruption to our history. That's what I teach my children. That's what I teach in my teen survival kit. You got to know where you came from to know where you're going. Hello? You know why so many young people who don't have fathers, they long to know who their dads are? Because that's telling them where they came from. It gives you a sense of purpose. I was one of those young people who lived a life of not knowing who my father was. And it was thankful to my young daughter who did the research and finally came up with an answer. Although I never got to meet him, never got to meet him, the kinfolks, but came up with a credible answer of who my father was, who he is. I was empowered by that. And you know what? I didn't find it out for sure until about a year ago. So, menticide. You've got to take the old mind out. It's called mindectomy. Now, you can't physically take your mind out, but ecto means to remove. You got to take that mentality out and do your research and put a new mind in. And when you begin to do that, you begin to see the world as what it really is. And then you begin to educate other people, each one, teach one. And then you realize that those people have been out there all along who have been trying to teach you. You just didn't get it. You just didn't know it because you had to have your mindectomy first. So you got to deprogram and then you got to reprogram. Now, how do you reprogram? I just told you what deprogramming is. Now you got to reprogram it. Now you got to study. You got to read everything you can. You got to listen to everybody. Everybody that is moving in the same path that you are moving in. Okay? You got to go out and do some reading. You've got to use that device that you carry around with you every day on the internet. Now that all you got to do is do ChatGPT. ChatGPT or any of these AI programs will tell you truth. It got so truth-worthy that when Elon Musk decided to put out a chat program and people started asking it about Black history and it started returning the facts about Black history, he tried to rewrite the algorithm and it did no good. And then even when you do this research, then you gotta, okay, this particular AI piece of software told me this. Let me go to the library, or let me order this book. Let me read this. Let me read this. Oh, it said the same thing. Now you're beginning to understanding what deprogramming is all about. And then reprogramming. Now you're reprogramming your mind. Now you're open to understanding who you are, where you came from. And then all of a sudden, the way you view the world is totally different. Because many of you all used to say, I support Israel. Black people. Not knowing that Israel don't want black people in that country. Not knowing that many of the people that are in Israel is currently from Northern Europe. Now you're beginning to see a sea change in the minds of young black people because they not only deprogrammed, they are reprogramming. Now what we've got to do is continue that process. We've got to stop letting movie theaters put trash in our communities. We've got to stop letting record executives put trash in our communities. You'd be mad if someone came to your house right now and dumped trash on your yard. You would. So why are you letting them dump trash into your minds? And that's what we must do. Woo! Hot show. Hope you enjoyed it. Woo! I'm going to start cutting up the show so we can help, so y'all can get segments of the show as well. I hope you enjoyed that show, no ifs, ands, or buts. Just remember, brilliant minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people. Which do you possess? Something to think about, right? All right, thank you for joining the show. Don't forget, Black Focus Radio every weekday on joynetradio.com. It's called that because we deal with our issues using our solutions and our voices. Habari Gani.
You've been listening to Black Focus, where we discuss our issues with our solutions and our voices. Join us every weekday afternoon at 1 p.m. on joynetradio.com.